Welcome back to the Republic Brothers Podcast. It's February 25th, 2026. I'm Mike, and he's Matt, and this is episode 37. We have a massive show today. We're breaking down President Trump's State of the Union address from last night, the wins, the warnings, and what it means for the American family. Before we dive into the highlights, hit that subscribe button and follow the show so you don't miss the next episode. We're here every Monday and Thursday to discuss the news, not just report it. Let's get started. All right, we have several quick updates on some topics from the last episode before we get into the big stuff. I want to start the show today with the same thing we started last time with, and that is the Team USA gold in hockey. Now, for something that should have been a unifying event for the entire country, it's turned into a complete meltdown for everyone on the left. Trump invited the men's and women's team to the State of the Union, which we'll get into later. The women cited scheduling issues on why they couldn't make it. However, they are supposed to be attending the White House at a later date. The men showed up to the event and got a nice introduction during the State of the Union, and Connor Hellebuck was told he's getting the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
It was great to see the patriotism from the people representing us on the global stage. The outrage over Trump's comments in the locker room was just ridiculous. The left thought he was making a joke about women, when in reality he was making a joke about the left, because many on the left are looking for any excuse to impeach him again. And that is what he was pointing out.
Yeah, and then of course we have the haters that are criticizing Kash Patel for celebrating with the team. Why is this such a big deal that Kash was proud of the team and then said yes when they invited him into the locker room? I don't understand. I would have gone in the locker room if they invited me. Who wouldn't? I mean, Don Lemon and the left said that Kash shouldn't be in there because we're almost at war with Iran. What does war with Iran have to do with the FBI? Is Kash not allowed to have fun? The left thinks that this country is racist. So should they be working on fixing that 24/7 and never have fun? I mean, you just can't make this stuff make sense. It's just about opposing everything Trump's administration does all the time, and it's so annoying. My main point is this, liberals. If you hate America, just say it with your chest.
And go somewhere that's better. As Kash himself said, he loves his country and he was there to support our teams just like a normal fan. He was invited in, so he went in to celebrate with them. If they invite me in, I'm going too. I saw people complaining that he was drinking. He had 2 beers, and that's counting the first one where he took a sip and then sprayed it around the room like the rest of the players did. I find it really funny as well when they say he took the FBI's private jet on a personal trip. Yes, because he is the director of the FBI and he is not allowed to fly commercial. It's a safety risk, but he also needs access to secure communications should someone need to get in touch with him. So he has to take the FBI's jet. He reimburses the government for personal flights. Every FBI director does the same thing, but it's only now that it's a problem. And you are right, Mike. The FBI is domestic law enforcement, and they would have nothing to do with Iran.
Exactly. Why is the left hyperventilating over whether the FBI director took a sip of beer and on whose plane he was flying on? They're completely ignoring the literal war that's unfolding in Mexico right now.
Those are future Democrat voters, that's why. But the chaos in Mexico had slowed. There are still parts of the country, particularly around Jalisco State, that are still seeing violence. Most airports have resumed normal operations, but Jalisco still has a shelter-in-place warning. This all started because the Mexican military launched an operation that took out the leader of the Jalisco New Generation cartel, known as El Mencho. Mexico deployed thousands of soldiers to affected areas to restore security. For most people in the country, they were safe, as the government forces and local police officers were the targets. It was important for civilians and tourists to stay away from law enforcement. While we don't have an official count right now, early reports cited dozens of deaths, mostly federal security personnel and cartel members. We also found out the U.S. involvement in this operation was the sharing of intelligence and no actual troops on the ground. In other news, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum is looking into taking legal action against Elon Musk after Elon tweeted about the chaos and said she was just saying what her cartel bosses wanted her to. Musk also said the state was run by drug traffickers, which is true. During her press conference on February 24th, Sheinbaum claimed Musk's allegations were absurd, and it makes her laugh reading some of this stuff. Her lawyers are supposedly reviewing Musk's comments and determining whether legal action is necessary.
I saw a post saying that Elon's tweet came from a video where Sheinbaum said that a war on drugs is not an option. Now, do you think that has some truth to it?
There's definitely some truth to that. Keep in mind the tweet where she said that was about a year ago. And that's what Elon responded to. You have to keep in mind the position she is in. She is the second strongest militarily in her own country, while she's also getting pressure from the Trump administration to start fixing the problem. So she has to choose her words very carefully. The simple reality is the cartels are stronger than the military. Also, the cartels don't care about drugs. They care about money and power. You can stop the drugs, but they will move on to other things to make more money. Human trafficking, for example.
You mentioned that U.S. intelligence was involved, but obviously we didn't use any troops. Does that make you wonder if the U.S. had to step in because they didn't trust the Mexican police to not leak the mission?
It's certainly possible, and that's a real concern. The cartels have infiltrated many local police departments, even local governments, and have pushed candidates to win elections in the country and then help them with their agenda. It is reasonable to think there's someone in the military who would leak information. Recruiting for the police and military is quite difficult for the country. It's very dangerous, especially when any mission involves a cartel. Mexico only has about 300,000 active duty military personnel, so they don't have the numbers for widespread intelligence and operations. When you factor in how advanced the cartels are, they would need some help for more difficult operations. While it is February 25th at the time of recording, which means the war in Ukraine is now in year 5. February 24th was the 4-year anniversary of this conflict. Both sides remain in an attritional style of warfare, with heavy casualties on both sides, and frontline combat continuing across the south and east of Ukraine. Russia continues regular missile and drone attacks on Ukrainian infrastructure, especially energy-related targets. Reports say Ukraine has made small localized gains on the battlefield, but these gains are small and won't really move the needle on ending the conflict. European leaders reaffirmed support for Ukraine during recent visits to Kiev. Peace talks are scheduled to resume on February 26th or 27th, though the Kremlin has not even confirmed it will participate. Peace talks have not gotten close to a deal, and I would not expect these talks to be any different. The International Institute for Strategic Studies, which is a global defense think tank, said there's little indication that Russia's ability to sustain its war efforts has diminished, meaning the Kremlin has the resources to continue the war on the battlefield. So do not expect their positions to change much in the near future. They will continue to stall with the hopes that they get everything they want.
It's crazy that this war has been going on for that long.
This was supposed to be a 3-day operation, and it's been 4 years.
And that's all due to how much stronger Ukraine was than what Russia thought, right?
There's a lot that goes into it. They didn't tell their military forces they were invading Ukraine until they were about to cross the border, so the military just wasn't ready for it. The entire operation was planned by essentially their version of the CIA, not the military. They believed they would walk into Ukraine and be seen as saviors and welcomed in. The civilian population would love them, and that the military would quickly lay down their arms. They got it a little bit wrong.
Yeah, that didn't work out so well. All right, well, let's dive into the biggest story today. That is President Donald Trump's State of the Union from last night. Now, Matt's going to break down his full analysis of the speech in a second, but before we get into the politics, I want to highlight the people who actually stole the show, and that is the medal recipients. I already mentioned Team USA goalie Connor Hellebuck getting the Medal of Freedom for that gold medal run at the Olympics, but there were a few other incredible stories in that room. You had Scott Ruskin, a Coast Guard rescue swimmer who got the Legion of Merit. The guy literally saved 164 people during the Texas floods. Then there was Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf and the family of Sarah Beckstrom, who were both awarded Purple Hearts after the attack near the White House. We also saw 2 Medals of Honor. One went to Chief Warrant Officer Eric Slover, an Army pilot who played a massive role in the mission to take down Nicolas Maduro. And finally, Captain Royce Williams. He is a 100-year-old retired Navy pilot who served in everything from World War II to Vietnam. Just an absolute legend.
Those were the feel-good moments in the speech. It was great to see real-life heroes getting some recognition they deserve. So let's break down this speech by Trump. During President Donald Trump's address to Congress, partisan tensions were on full display. Many Democrats remained seated or refrained from applauding throughout much of the speech. Only a few, notably John Fetterman, occasionally stood and cheered. Some members, including Al Green, were kicked out. Green only lasted a few minutes. While Democrats did stand for certain moments, such as honoring the veterans and a few other guests, they largely withheld visible support during key policy sections. The part that was a very odd message to me was when Trump said the left wanted to raise taxes and they cheered for it. These addresses are not about individual reactions as parties go into it with a strategy on what to cheer for and for how long. I would imagine that Minority House Speaker Hakeem Jeffries wanted Democrats to seem normal and to be happy for America, but it took about 5 minutes for that to end. Trump focused heavily on immigration, inflation, tax policy, national security, and a little bit on foreign affairs. He highlighted declines in illegal immigration, criticized the previous administration for letting millions of people into the country, floated the idea of eliminating income tax, and reiterated strong stances on Iran, NATO, and drug cartels in Mexico. I think it was smart of him to reference past military actions and suggested continued firmness towards adversaries while signaling openness to negotiation. Much of this speech really made it seem like the start of the campaign for the elections in November. He was really pushing domestic policies that are designed to help Americans at home. As you mentioned earlier, the address included moments honoring service members and other Americans, which did draw bipartisan standing ovations for the most part. But the overall atmosphere remained sharply divided, with reactions mostly split along party lines. The speech ultimately did become the longest ever, and it closed with Democrats exiting immediately and Republicans kind of hanging back to celebrate what they viewed as a forceful and wide-ranging address that delivered. In the end, the speech lasted 1 hour and 48 minutes. This was 20 minutes longer than the previous record, and I thought it was going to go even longer, but I'm glad he ended it when he did. Even I was getting a little tired of listening to it. I thought Trump made some really smart decisions with what he was going to say, and he was very smart to ask everyone to stand if they thought the role of the government was to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens. And it was split right along party lines. That showed everyone where the priorities were for the Democrats. I think it was a very bad look for the left. I don't know if you saw this, Mike, but I actually saw John Fetterman said he was disappointed that so many of his colleagues did not even show up, and that some of their actions in the chamber were bad for the party and the country. He also said he didn't check with his party to see what he was and wasn't supposed to cheer for. That would be why he was the only one who cheered for some of these things.
Yeah, I did notice that Fetterman seemed to be the only Democrat standing up for anything. He seemed to be the only one of them with any common sense. And I think that he knew that Trump would know the Democrats were going to pull a stunt like this since they've done it before. And I think Trump played into that and made them look really bad. The only person I could not figure out who it was the woman in the blue that was kind of in the middle of the Democrats. She was standing every time all the Republicans were, but she was on like the Democrat side of the room. But it never like zoomed in close enough for me to figure out who she was.
Well, and I wonder if John Fetterman realized last year at the State of the Union just how bad of a look it was that not a single Democrat could stand up for a boy who survived brain cancer. And if just one of them had done it last year, they would have been thought of as a potential leader in the party.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw either. That little boy passed away a couple days ago.
Yeah, I did hear about it. It's so sad.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see the sign that Al Green had before he got kicked out?
I did see the sign. I had to rewind to try to go back and figure out what it said.
It was really funny because when I had to pause it to see what it said. And it said, "Black people rent apes." And then I realized his hand was covering part of it, and it wasn't supposed to say that. It was, "Black people aren't apes."
Yeah, that was the first thing I noticed when it started. The class was on full display for the Democrats last night.
There was no apostrophe in aren't, so I didn't think that he misspelled it. And that's...
Did you see that Ilhan Omar's guest was arrested by the Capitol Police?
Yeah, I did see that. What a joke.
Yeah, of course, she says that her guest was just standing there, but I highly doubt that.
Almost certainly. She demanded an investigation, by the way, as if that wasn't going to happen anyways. I have a good feeling many details were left out.
Oh, yeah, and I'm sure you saw Ilhan Omar sitting there shouting at Trump.
Oh, yeah, and the F-Ice pins that some of them decided to wear. Like, come on, what are you doing?
Yeah.
That's such a bad look.
Mm-hmm. I could not believe that none of them stood up when Trump asked them to stand if they thought they were supposed to be putting Americans first and not illegal aliens. I could not believe that they walked right into that trap and just sat there.
I'm not surprised, because those are future Democrat voters if they get their way. The more shocking one was the one where Trump said, "We're going to eliminate or at least reduce violent crimes." They couldn't cheer for that.
Yeah. They also didn't stand up for the parents of Irina Zarutska either.
No, they didn't. It was a really bad look. Well, they cared more about the guy that stabbed Irina than they did about the white girl.
Yeah. But Omar has the audacity to say that Trump is the one that's killing people. Yeah, got it. All right, well, that is pretty much everything we have on the State of the Union. Let's move on to our next topic. We have another Epstein-related arrest. Former UK Ambassador to the U.S. Peter Mandelson was arrested on Monday amid an investigation into his connection to Jeffrey Epstein, according to London's Metropolitan Police. Mandelson is a former Labour Party politician who allegedly passed market-sensitive information to Jeffrey Epstein when he was the UK business secretary. A Metro Police spokesperson said, quote, "Officers have arrested a 72-year-old man on suspicion of misconduct in public office. This follows search warrants at 2 addresses in the Wiltshire and Camden areas." The latest batch of U.S. Justice Department files on Epstein released by the agency led to Mandelson's resignation from the Labour Party earlier this month, after quitting the House of Lords the same week. Mandelson was fired from his ambassador role in September by the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer following a previous release of Epstein files showing that Mandelson had called the late Epstein, quote, "my best pal," in a handwritten note for his 50th birthday. Last week, former Prince Andrew was also arrested for misconduct in office.
Starmer was given the warnings that Mandelson was good friends with Epstein, and it was shown as a major red flag. Starmer apparently talked to Mandelson, and Mandelson lied and said he wasn't friends with Epstein. Turns out he was, and he passed on information that almost certainly gave Epstein insider information. It's important to note that this was not an arrest for any sex crimes, but it really makes you wonder why you would give Epstein this kind of information. I wonder if this is why the government was hesitant to release the files. Did they know the British government would be thrown into chaos? The Labour Party was already unpopular, so maybe now was a fine time. But this has really tanked the Labour Party. Do not expect Keir Starmer to resign, though, because there are elections in May in the UK, and they will absolutely throw him under the bus when it doesn't go well for the Labour Party.
Yeah, exactly. And remember, Mandelson is 72 years old, and he's been a kingmaker in the Labour Party for 40 years. If he goes down for misconduct in office, he is not going alone. The fact that Prince Andrew was picked up just a few days earlier tells me that the authorities in the UK are not playing around anymore. Starmer might try to hang on until May, like you said, but if more of these DOJ files link the UK government to Epstein's financial web, unpopular is going to be the least of the Labour Party's worries. This is their house of cards, and the wind is picking up. All right, we just wanted to touch on that real quick. We have a couple more things to touch on real quick before we get to our blind ranking. The next thing I want to talk about is Gavin Newsom. I'm sure a lot of people have heard this already, but during his stop in Atlanta, Georgia to promote his book, Gavin Newsom said what he thought was a way to connect with the audience, but it kind of turned out to be an insult if you're thinking about it. He said, quote, "I'm not trying to impress you. I'm like you. I'm a 960 SAT guy," end quote. Then he said that he doesn't read his speeches because he can't read due to his dyslexia. He said this to a room full of black people. He basically just gave him a backhanded compliment without the compliment. He said, basically, "I'm like you. I got a low SAT score and I can't read good." In other words, he said you're stupid and he's stupid too, and he relates to you, only he has a reason. He has dyslexia. What's your excuse? Now, let's take this to the extreme so we can see how it really sounds. Let's imagine I'm sitting in a room full of white people and I say, "Hey, I'm like you. I don't season my food. My taste buds suck and I can't taste food that well." Everyone in the room should be sitting there thinking, why does that make me like you? I just said to you, I'm like you. I can't cook either and my food sucks. But I have a reason. What's yours? Now, Newsom is arguing that he's talked about his dyslexia and his low test scores before. Okay, Gavin, I believe you. But how does that make you like all the people in the room that you were talking to?
Well, it doesn't. It's just such a bizarre comparison. But what else can he say? If he sits there and he says, "Hey, everybody in the room, we have the same amount of money in our bank accounts." Well, no, that's not true. Okay, we all drive the same cars and we own the same kinds of properties. That's almost certainly false. How about we both love our country? Well, maybe, but that means the audience doesn't like the U.S., and that will certainly come up in a presidential run.
I just don't understand how he is even trying to defend this. When you say, "Hey, I'm like you," whatever you say after that is how you are comparing yourself to those people. And to say, "I'm like you, I got a low test score, and I can't read that well," how is anyone supposed to take that? To me, it sounds like he just said, hey, I'm like you. I'm not that smart.
Yeah, and I'm sure the people in Atlanta who are born and raised, most likely in the South, think the guy born in San Francisco is just like them.
Yeah. Well, speaking about stupid, let's move on to Zohran Mamdani. He just keeps digging himself deeper and deeper. And how fitting is it that this story is about shovels? Now, let's start with some context for anyone who doesn't know or hasn't heard. As a powerful winter storm hit New York City, Mayor Mamdani publicly called on residents to sign up as emergency snow shovelers to help clear sidewalks and support the city's cleanup efforts. However, to officially register as a paid snow shoveler, applicants had to bring multiple forms of identification and a social security card to a designated sanitation garage. Mamdani then defended the paperwork by saying it's simply standard legal procedure for anyone who's being paid for work and they can't just cut checks to people. It should be standard procedure to require ID to vote too, if you're not a moron. Now, obviously, conservative commentators and politicians jumped all over this ID requirement. As I would hope, most people would see the irony here. Why do I need an ID to buy a house, to buy alcohol, to rent a car, to get a job, to drive a car, and a million other things? But according to the left, I shouldn't need an ID to vote. One of the most important things you can do to have a voice for you and your family. Did Mamdani really not think that people were going to pick up on this when he asked people for IDs? If you need an ID to do all of these other things, but you can't figure out how to get an ID to vote, you are too stupid to vote anyway. And that is exactly what the Democrats think of you. They just won't say it out loud.
They can't say it out loud. Minority communities aren't going to vote for you if you call them stupid. Hillary Clinton made this mistake in 2016 when she said anyone who would vote for Trump is a deplorable. Insulting people is not the way to get their vote. What they really want is no voter ID, because then it's far easier to cheat if they can't check identities. That allows them to get illegal immigrants into the ballot box and gives them a chance to have people vote more than once if they need that. They know you need some form of identification for security purposes. After all, you have to identify yourself to enter most government buildings. The claim that it's really hard for minorities to get an ID is completely false. You can get an ID many places and they are free. Everyone has a phone so they can Google how to do it. It doesn't even have to be a driver's license. If you can't figure out how to get an ID, you shouldn't be allowed to vote.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I also want to mention the two officers who were attacked with snow and ice. For anyone who didn't see the video, it's kind of crazy. Mamdani referred to the incident as a snowball fight, even though officers suffered cuts to the face and neck. If anyone out there thinks that that was a snowball fight, let me ask you this. Would you let people do that to your kids or your mama? I'm guessing not. And if you wouldn't, that's not a snowball fight, it's assault. If Mamdani keeps proving that he's not going to have the backs of law enforcement officers in his own backyard, there's not going to be anyone to protect you when you need it.
Oh, it will get worse in New York. Zohran must have come from a place that didn't get a lot of snow, because I've never seen anyone throw ice in a snowball fight. Snow is soft, but ice is hard with sharp edges. I've said this before, but communities that support their local law enforcement should be running ads in New York City to try and get them to move. You won't be supported by your government in New York City, but we will, so move south. The truth is, Mamdani believes law enforcement can't be the victim because they are in the position of power. There is the victim and the victimizer, and anything the victim does is justified because they are the oppressed. It's completely false, but that's how the left thinks.
All right, well, now that we got everything out of the way, it is time for our blind ranking segment. We had a Tucker Carlson and Israel conversation lined up, but due to the State of the Union address and all that, we're going to save that for the next episode. Matt, once again, we are doing non-politicians that you would vote for president. Are you ready?
Let's go.
All right. Well, I put this on the list because we were going to have the Tucker Carlson conversation. So your first one is Tucker Carlson.
Ooh. Not a massive fan. He's not the worst. He's out there on a few topics, but he's not bad. So I'm going to go 3 and hope there's some better and some worse.
Okay, going number 3. Next up, you have Jesse Waters.
Okay, Jesse's not bad. I think I'll go number 2. He's one of my preferred Fox News hosts.
Okay. Next up is Eric Trump.
Don't know a lot about him. He can't go number 1. I would put him above Tucker, but since I can't do that, I have to go 4 and leave 1 and 5 open.
All right, you have 1 and 5 open. I'm pretty sure I know where the next one's going. Whoopi Goldberg.
5. She can't go 1.
Yeah. And in your number 1 spot, you have a little sports theme for you, Chipper Jones.
Well, that's not that bad.
Yeah, I did a little research on his politics just in case, you weren't sure or whatever. But he was very outspoken during COVID and, people getting vaccines. He was against, the forced vaccines and all that. So he's never fully come out and said which side he's on, but you can tell just from doing a little research on him that he's definitely on the
more
right.
on the conservative side.
Yeah, definitely. So
Tucker should have been down 1 position for Eric Trump, and Jesse should have been number 1, I think.
Gotcha. All right. Well, yeah, you finished Chipper Jones 1, Jesse Waters 2, Tucker Carlson at 3, Eric Trump at 4, and Whoopi at 5.
The Chipper Jones one was a bit out of left field, baseball reference.
A bit out of third base.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Well, that is it for episode 37 of the Republic Brothers podcast. If you're still listening, you're exactly who this podcast is for. Before you click away, hit the subscribe button. New episodes drop every Monday and Thursday. If you agree or disagree with anything we talked about, please drop a comment and let us know. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.